able to do that, and we finally managed to carry out an incredible citizen process with the primaries on October 22nd. Many times we heard in the days before the primaries that it was impossible to carry out a process of such complexity without the participation of the regime through the Electoral Council or the armed forces, and that it was going to be a very low turnout, at most 300,000 people. It ended up being an impeccable process done by the citizens. The citizens appropriated the primaries, and we had a turnout of almost 3 million people. The regime underestimated the Venezuelan society and also the capacity to organize such an incredible and challenging process. Then we had the huge challenge to be able to carry out an election with a unitary candidate. They thought that by banning me from participating as a candidate, we would, simply get out of the electoral route and give up. And we did exactly the contrary. And we were able to find a very brave and honest person, Edmundo González Urrutia, to assume that responsibility. And they told us it was impossible, that Edmundo was not going to reach the final day, that they were not going to let him run, and that people will not be committed to vote for someone that 2 months before no one knew. And we found a way. We were persecuted. We had not even one interview on national TV, not even one interview on national radio. We managed to deliver an epic campaign without media, without money, and being absolutely persecuted. Our team, especially our campaign managers, were all either in prison or have taken asylum in the Argentina embassy. And we managed to do it. And then they told us it was absolutely impossible to prove the degree of fraud the regime has been able to do in the past. Yes, we've had over 30 elections in these 25 years. They all had some degree of manipulation and fraud. Some of them are simply sham elections in the past, and that was exactly what the regime was planning to do. And once again, they didn't expect this level of turnout. It was massive. They never expected people would overcome fear and vote, even in places where the Chavismo has won always by landslide in the last 25 years. Vote for El Mundo, and we won. But most of all, they never expected that we were going to be able to prove our victory. And what took place on July 28th and 29th is one of the events that I think Venezuela will most be proudest of in our history. And I'm very proud to be part of it. Over 1 million volunteers that had some specific task, worked all throughout our country, and were managed to get the tally sheets, to collect them, to take them to places, all hidden places all around Venezuela, where we had the security of electricity and internet, so that they could be digitalized, scanned, digitalized, and we put them in a web page that in 24 hours, it was open to the whole world to analyze, to scrutinize. Since then, those tally sheets today represent over 84% of the tally sheets and over 85% of the total votes. And we proved that Edmundo González Urrutia won by a landslide of 67% versus Maduro, who got 30%. But don't get mistaken. Over 4.5 million Venezuelans that live abroad were not allowed to vote, that are actually registered They were not allowed to vote. Neither around 3 to 4 million young Venezuelans that have turned 18 in the last years, and which the regime knows is the toughest, strongest support we have. So if those Venezuelans have had the chance, these had been open elections, you can be sure that the results would have been over 90% support for the democratic forces. So this is not a polarized society. This is not a divided country. This is a country united more than ever, not only rejecting the regime and its corrupt and criminal nature, but around values. We want a country in which we can live united, in which we can work with dignity, in which we can have open markets and private property can be respected, but most of all, a country, a nation where we can bring our kids back home. Since that day, the regime started a brutal campaign of repression that has been denounced by every single. Oh, let me go just back to one thing regarding our electoral process and material. Over 20 organizations and scholars have analyzed, studied, because we did it as an open source, and all the information is on the web. Professors in universities such as Michigan and Berkeley have done independent studies. The Carter Center, which was an observer, did as well, and the independent panel of the United Nations that were also observers in the election analyzed our tally sheets and our results. Every single one has concluded that our material and our results are authentic, and the results the Electoral Council announced without producing one single number are not real. So today, everyone knows that Edmundo González is the president-elect in Venezuela. Everybody, even the Chavista base, even the armed forces, because we wouldn't have been able to collect all our tally if we hadn't had the cooperation of members of the armed forces that were deployed as in the Plan República, and members and employees from the National Council, the Electoral Council, which disobeyed orders and not to give us our official tally sheets. Having said that, we've seen in this last month the most brutal campaign of repression. Anyone publicly or directly associated with the 28th of July today are either in hiding, have left the country, are under asylum, or are in jail. That's the situation right now in Venezuela. Maduro ordered the strongest, most brutal repression in the hours after the election, and over 2,500 Venezuelans were detained, mostly young and poor people. Many were hurt, tortured, and over 150 children under 18, Venezuelans under 18, were put in prison. They were accused of terrorism, and many of them were forced to record videos supporting Maduro. So far, most of them, of the children, have been released because of the huge campaign that was deployed, and many of you abroad helped a lot denouncing individual cases. But today there are over 200 women still in prison. Some of them have been subject of sexual assault and torture. It has been so traumatic that La CIDH, the Inter-American Commission, stated at the OAS Permanent Council that what's happening in Venezuela can be qualified as practice of state terrorism. They haven't said that since the military dictatorships of last century in Latin America. So right now, Maduro has decided to remain atrincherado, surrounded by the military high command. And I have to say that over 300 military have been detained as well in the last weeks. That's information we have. Probably it's much more than that. And they are trying to produce, terror in every single institution, and many public employees have been forced out of their jobs and fired just because they have information regarding the electoral process in their WhatsApps or in their emails. So this is a tough moment regarding what the country can express publicly. Nonetheless, we've seen a huge mobilization around the world, and we believe Venezuela has turned into a global cause, and we need to maintain that in order for Maduro to understand that every day that goes by, the cost of staying in power through violence and repression will increase, and understand that his best option is to accept a negotiated transition. We are not there yet. There are several efforts taking place, such as Colombia, Mexico, and Brazil's. But there's something that we need to say. There's not one single democracy in the world that has recognized the result Maduro announced. So we believe that we've never been in a stronger position in terms of our legitimacy, in terms of cohesion of Venezuelan society, and in terms of the understanding of the international community, what the regime represents, not only for Venezuela, but the threats in the region. I would end just this introduction by making an alarm in terms of the forces that are growing in Venezuela. On one hand, we have a huge indignation because of Maduro pretending to rob popular sovereignty. Second, the rage and fear that they have produced through repression. And the third force I see growing and worries me a lot is how the economy is being shrinking in the last weeks, and especially how this is hurting the poor sectors of Venezuela. We fear that the fourth quarter of this year could come with a decrease, significant decrease in consumption of food and basic needs in this sector. The mixture of all these feelings certainly can produce strong social unrest, but at the same time, an important increase in migration, which we are already seeing happening in Brazil and Colombia. We haven't had the official data from Migración Colombia yet. We've had some from Brazil that it's not official yet, but it's very significant. So I think the international community should understand that we've never been in a better position in terms of forcing the regime to understand that they better get involved in a serious negotiation in which we're willing to give conditions and guarantees, but understand the risk, the growing risk for the whole region if Maduro decides to prolong this agony. So we're here, we are never going to give up, and when we say hasta el final, it is hasta el final. So thank you very much to all of you for this opportunity to exchange views.
Thank you, Maria Corina. We have plenty of questions, so we will start with them. The first one from Julia Sainz-Cobb from Reuters. What options does the opposition have in practical terms International pressure has been pretty limited. The government doesn't seem to be bothered by the possibility of new sanctions, and people in Venezuela reasonably fear arrest if they attend protest. Is there really a path forward? What will happen if yourself and Mundo Gonzalez are arrested? And is there a real possibility of the military rejecting Maduro?
Well, that's like 10 questions. So let me try to answer as fast as I can. Of course, there's a path forward. As I said before, and that's why I went all the way through the last 2 years, we've always heard it's impossible to move ahead. And look where we are right now. I mean, it was impossible to think a couple of months ago that no one in the West or democratic countries would not recognize a result of Maduro. And I think there are many actions and there are many initiatives that can be taken. Some are being considered, so others not yet. And I do think that the decision of Maduro to increase repression doesn't give him more legitimacy. On the contrary, I think it keeps on isolating him, even of those that were his allies before. It is unsustainable. I think it is inconceivable that Maduro feels today that he can kill 1, 10, or 50 Venezuelans and nothing will happen to him. So he has to be held accountable. And there are mechanisms in the international community to do that and to send clear messages that crimes against humanity will have consequences. And believe me, these messages do reach the sectors that today are left supporting Maduro. So is this easy? No, this is absolutely very risky. You ask if there's a risk that Mundo and I, or I could be put in prison. Certainly. They are looking for us intensively. I mean, they have put in prison people that they thought knew where I am. And that's the reality we're facing right now. And every day we that passes by, new and more members of all political parties are either imprisoned or have to move out of the country. Many have left the country, and it is hard to maintain not only the will to fight, which is there, but the capacity to operate this new wave of actions, a new phase of actions and mobilization that we were putting in place. The last time we went to the streets, the 28th of August, when a month after the election, well, you know what happened. Viaggio Pilieri, which is the chief of Convergencia, a member of the Plataforma Unitaria, well, he was persecuted for over half an hour by several cars, motorcycles, until finally he was in prison with his son. And believe me, we felt quite hurt that there wasn't anywhere safe where we could send him. So that's a reality we're facing right now, and I am very proud to see how members of all political parties in Venezuela have behaved courageously right now, and we've never been, more united and clear that we need to maintain pressure growing and we need to resist.
Thank you. The second question from Nash Kulandalur from the Prospect United Kingdom. We met 10 years ago in Venezuela. The different forces have remained loyal to Maduro. How important is their support, and how do you convince them to support you and the people of Venezuela?
David, no te escuché. You refer to the military?
Yes, we met with, Nash says on the question, we met 10 years ago in Venezuela.
I know. But
different forces have remained loyal to Maduro.
The different forces?
The armed forces.
The armed forces.
Oh, the armed forces.
Okay.
How important is their support? Okay.
Okay, thank you. Of course, yes, thank you. Yeah, certainly is very important. Certainly is very important, because that's today the only thing Maduro has left. I mean, not only the military, also the paramilitary. But I mean, the individuals that are armed and are willing to follow instructions to attack innocent individuals. And as I said before, I believe that we couldn't have been able to collect the tally sheets if we wouldn't have had the support of the base of the military. And within the institution, it is obvious that they know what happened, and there's great conflict. Nonetheless, I'm not prepared to tell you, or I don't think we have enough information regarding the degree of divisions that might are happening, that should be happening as we speak. But I know they are, because they know the truth. So one of the things we need to keep on doing is letting it clear for the armed forces that this system is not sustainable. That regardless of what Maduro tells them, and one of the things is that the world will look the other way around soon, because they will get tired insisting on pressing Venezuela, and that's part of our most important task, to have the world understand the degree of damage Maduro is doing, not also to Venezuela but the region, and the opportunity we have. I think it is obvious that in a world that has been so polarized, even in the United States right now, with a very particular election, you see Venezuela is a bipartisan issue, and the support we are getting from Congress and the two houses and the House and Senate and the two parties is an evidence that Venezuela is being seen as an issue of maximum priority and national security. And that is happening also as well in Europe. We're seeing that there are very few issues that get the 27 countries together with a unique position. That is happening in Latin America as well. So besides Cuba, Nicaragua, and Honduras, and Bolivia, no one else has recognized Maduro. So I think it is a tough moment, because the regime has a criminal structure, nature, and rational, and that's how they act. But I am convinced that we are moving ahead every day that goes by, and we have to stay alive and free. That's one of our main challenges, certainly.
Perfect. We have the third question, Samantha Schmidt from the Washington Post. I would like to know, what steps do you think the U.S. government should be taking next in Venezuela? Do you think the Biden administration should maintain existing oil licenses in Venezuela? Should sanctions be tightened anyway? Yeah, that's it.
Well, Samantha, thank you so much, because you've been very close to all this process, and I highlighting individuals that are extremely courageous. And I think it's important to put face to the numbers, and beyond us, that the Venezuelan citizens that feel this is an existential struggle, much more than an electoral one, even a spiritual one. That's why this is so strong. And that's why this has no way back, I certainly think the United States should do much more. And I've been very clear to them and to other countries. I think that perpetrators of human rights violations and crimes against humanity should know that they will be held account, because it sends a message to the rest of them not to do that, not only in the military, but also today in the judiciary system, including El Fiscal General de la Nación, which it's hard to refer to him as that, because he clearly is illegitimate, but also has committed himself numerous crimes. And he has turned into one of the main tools to persecute and silence society. So I think these messages should come clear to the regime and to these individuals. Regarding the oil sector, if there's someone that believes in opening markets and turning Venezuela into the energy hub of the Americas, it's us, it's me. And I do think that these companies should understand that it is in their best interest, as well as Venezuelan creditors, for a transition to democracy as fast as possible, and not supporting the regime. I think that for the first time in 25 years, we have aligned the interest of every single stakeholder with a transition in Venezuela. And I'm even talking about the creditors and Venezuelan bondholders that, some of them have been one of the main supporters of the regime in the last years, and promoting lobbying and other actions to normalize the situation, and even sometimes to wash the face of Maduro in front of the rest of the world. Today, our belief is that most of them understand that there's no way Maduro will be able to restructure the debt, and that they will not be paid if the regime stays in power. So even their interests are aligned with a peaceful and organized and stable transition. So I think that the companies that are currently in Venezuela are thinking into coming to Venezuela, they also start to evaluate the cost in terms of reputation and goodwill that anyone close to Maduro is paying right now, will pay in the days to come.
Next question is Maria Jose Noriega Ramirez from El Espectador de Colombia. I have this question for you. How to reach out to the circle that surrounds Nicolás Maduro, who currently supports him, and what could the opposition offer them to generate a break that could eventually lead to a transition?
Well, Maria Jose, there are some people on the circles of the system that have reached to us. There are some that understand that this is not sustainable. Of course, they are terrified. And there are other actors, international actors, that are using their connections to Maduro currently to try to show him that it is also in his best interest to sit down in a serious negotiation. I believe that Maduro's leverage to negotiate is not increasing, but on the contrary, is decreasing because of the abuses he has committed regarding human rights and the situation of the country, which is deteriorating every day. So I think we need to keep doing that. We use different channels, and I think that some initiatives such as the one being carried on by President Petro and Lula have that objective. How effective they have been? Well, probably not what we expected, but certainly the message is being carried on. And we have been clear that we are willing to give incentives and guarantees, but those specifics will be subject of the negotiation.
Tom Phillips from The Guardian. Given the arrest of several close allies, the arrest warrant issued last week against Edmundo González, and the recognition from Celso Amorín here in Brazil a few days ago that authoritarian escalation is underway, do you and Mr. González plan to stay in Venezuela, or do you believe you will be forced to seek exile abroad? Is it really possible to stay in Venezuela given the dangerous times you said the country was living through?
Tom, every day that goes by is harder. That's true, and riskier. That's true. And we face a ruthless regime that is able to do anything in terms of forcing people, blackmailing people, threatening people, families. I mean, they have no limits in their cruelty. That's true. Nonetheless, I believe my duty is to stay in Venezuela, close to our teams and our people that are either in prison or hiding, and